7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, actually Eastern Standard Time. Call the July 22nd Mayor and Council meeting to order. And the first item, I'd like to call forward Jamie Barton for the pledge. And as she's walking up, I'd just like to tell you a little information about her. She is the winner of the 2013 BBC Cardiff Singer of the World and winner of the Song Prize. She's the first woman and only the second person in history to win both of the singing prizes in this competition. Winning this competition is the highest competition prize an opera singer can earn, and many compare this competition with the Olympics. The competition happens every 2 years, and countries send representatives to hopefully win one of the 20 spots available to compete. Jamie was the sole representative from the United States of America this year, and we're so glad to have you with us, Jamie. We're sorry we only have you talk, but maybe after you say the pledge, we can talk you into some singing as well. So would everybody please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you like to, do you sing a cappella, or do you have a song you could sing for us?
Not really.
A little rousing "God Bless America" or something like that? Wouldn't expect you to do the national anthem. It's got a few real high notes. Well, thank you very much. Do you want to tell us anything about the opportunity that you had and were successful at?
Well, it was an amazing opportunity. Getting to represent the United States of America was a very, very important thing for me. And it's been nuts ever since. Certainly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I'm still gobsmacked, I think is the best word I can come up with. So.
Well, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations. Oh, there's an opportunity again for a picture with our opera singer, if council would like to join us down below.
Oh, absolutely. Or I can come up there.
Well, they always like to get right up there.
Oh, okay, great.
I have a couple of announcements. One, over the past year, the Community Development Department has been working on a rewrite of the zoning ordinance. The Unified Development Code is in process, and there will be public open house meetings in August. These meetings will be on Monday, August 19th at East Roswell Park from 7 to 9, Tuesday, August 20th at Roswell Area Park from 7 to 9, and Wednesday, August 21st at City Hall at 11:30 to 2 in the afternoon, and also again in the evening, Wednesday at Henry Park from 7 to 9. So it's 3 days in a row, August 19th through the 21st, each night, 7 to 9 p.m. at different locations, and on Wednesday during the noon hour. So I encourage everybody to either come to those events or make their wishes known, and you can go on the website to find out more about it and to see how it affects you and pertains to you, and just let us know what you think. Second announcement, on Monday, July 29th, there will be open mic night, so anybody who has any comments or concerns, certainly we welcome you on that evening, and anybody who's here tonight who thinks that we're talking about the tower, that is not on tonight's agenda. Third announcement is we are delighted to report, and you may have noticed that the tax notice correction was sent out from Fulton County, so I'm sure our admonitions to them were heeded, and we got that taken care of. At this time, we'll go forward with the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items to extract from that? Okay, I had a few items to take out, unfortunately, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. So would you like to amend that to approving 1, 5, and 8?
Approval of 1, 5, and 8.
All in favor of approving items 1, 5, and 8 on the consent agenda? Appears to be unanimous. Okay, taking up item number 2. And the only reason I'm extracting these is just really for information, since it goes into the record. And item number 2 is the contract with Propane Auto Gas in the amount of $62,000, requiring a budget amendment in the amount of $3,300. So I was just concerned that it did go over budget, and Mr. Fisher would tell us about that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. When we first came to the committee, we did that based off of discussions we had really last year's prices. We started that quite some time back. We were working actually with this very company that we were talking that got the bid. Their estimate at that time was like $5,700 per vehicle. The cost for the equipment to go into the vehicle has gone up slightly, so it ended up being slightly more. And I wanted to put that in as it came here for the actual approval to make sure that we covered the total cost. So it's an equipment that went up from when we first were talking to the contractor to when we actually got the bids.
Thank you. Any questions from council? I guess we can take these all at a lump later. Going on to item number 3, the analysis of impediments to fair housing. I just wanted clarification that we are adopting that. Does that mean we are adopting any specific action plan or fiscal note accompanying that?
The action plan that was provided to committee on the first committee meeting that we talked with, and we went through and had some rewrites to kind of change some of the wording. That action plan was reworded, and the wording in the red was what was talked about in the last committee, and that's what's moving forward to approve for the action plan for tonight. So you would be approving this, and that is the action plan that will be turned in to HUD for approval.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, we'll go on to item number 4. And this is signing a master lease agreement with RICO for provision of citywide copiers and service program. And my question about that was, I noticed it's a 3-year agreement. Is that advantageous to us, or all that we could do?
I think it's most likely both. That's the standard term of an agreement that we enter into. The request for proposals, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm almost certain that was within the scope, that would be the initial term. I don't see Mr. Lee. He was here a moment ago, but I don't see him to ask that. But I do know that is the initial term.
Okay, thank you. Also, number 6, the recycling at work pledge. And I know we do a lot of recycling now, and we're being asked to do 10% less. Can we actually do that, Mr. Mooring?
Yes, ma'am. The idea here is to accept this pledge and to take appropriate steps to increase our amount of recycling. This, as we discussed in the committee meeting, this will relate strictly to the city government in our various office places, and we have in place a mechanism at the recycling center to track the tonnage of materials. Within the Public Works Environmental Department, we have done a waste audit and determined that indeed there would be probably close to 10% of material that gets disposed of in trash cans that could be recycled. And part of that has to do with the convenience of recycling containers. But primarily the objective of this pledge is to join with other entities around the country to identify recycling as an important endeavor, and realizing that about 45% of the 250 million tons of municipal waste come from commercial and institutional locations, so that there are great opportunities for reducing our waste load that goes to landfills. There are a number of steps, and I'll be happy to go through them if you wish.
I'm okay unless anyone wants to hear it. There doesn't seem to be a great will to hear it. There's a hand in the audience. Maybe she would like to hear it. Certainly, come forward, please.
Mr. Mooring.
State your name, please.
Janet Russell. I helped start the recycling center a long time ago with Kathy Schechter as volunteers. This is just for government offices. I'd like to see this include any city-sponsored events, because every time we go somewhere and all there is a trash can, it doesn't tell anybody who's visiting our city or participating in an event that this city cares about recycling. And I'd like to see it become part of the process, that every time we have a city-sponsored event, no matter how small, that there are receptacles there indicating glass, cans, paper, trash. All over the country you see this, and not in Roswell, where it seems that green is just the color of the shutters but not a real lifestyle.
Thank you, Mrs. Russell. I'm sure that that could be incorporated into some of our plans so that we can make that 10%.
Yes, ma'am. We certainly, yeah, we can do that. There obviously are a number of challenges associated with that, but we will be happy to put together some plans for your consideration.
Thank you. And the final one, number 7, is signing a contract with Blount Construction for paving at Big Creek and East Roswell Parks in the amount of $212,300. And I know we had a similar contract in the most recent months for almost that same amount, and I guess that combined makes a much larger amount. Would somebody care to comment on that? Mr. Glover.
Well, this was a complete separate project. I think the project you're talking about was the FCA project, which was over $200,000, which we're trying to use the same bid to use the same dollar amounts and figures to do this. Of course, this project is paving the driveway at Big Creek Park from Old Alabama all the way back to the back parking lot. I went out there this afternoon, and after all this rain, it is in really, really terrible condition. A lot of holes, a lot of ruts, and a lot of erosion. The other part is paving the trail system at East Roswell Park from the little parking lot at Eves Road, which would go all the way around back to Fouts Road, which would tie into the rest of the city's trail system. And it'll make a complete loop into the East Roswell Park.
And this is coming through the Department of Administration, Transportation, and Parks, or is this one just Parks?
This is just parks.
This is just Parks. And we get it at the same rate as the other contract was negotiated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, unless there is anyone wishing to subdivide that. Motion to approve by Councilwoman Diamond, second by Mr. DiPolito. All in favor? Oops, I don't get to vote. Passes unanimously. Next item And the regular agenda is approval of a design review board appointment of Marcus Mello. Is Marcus here? A motion to approve by Councilwoman Nguyen and second by Councilman DiPolito. Was it Diamond? Excuse me. She must have a frog in her throat. All in favor? Unanimous. Next item, I'll call on Councilmember Rich DiPolito for the Administration and Finance Department item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. This item is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a renewal contract with Aetna for group health benefits in the amount of $5,599,236 and approval of the City of Roswell Employee Benefits Program for the period October 1, 2013 to September 30, 2014. Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, this item is our annual renewal contract for employee health and ancillary benefits insurance coverages. The Human Resources Division went to the market through our broker and solicited competitive bids from all the major carriers in these insurance markets. We got a mixed result of responses from the carriers in the industry, most of which chose not to respond or to bid because they could not quote a price that was competitive with our current coverages. Our best renewal quote is to bind coverage with Aetna for all lines of coverage, resulting in a 6% increase to our premium. We started out at a 13.4% increase renewal rate with Aetna and negotiated that down to 6%. Outside of that bid from Aetna, the next closest bid was at 11%, and that included substantial plan design changes that would be unsatisfactory to the city and to our employees. So it is staff's recommendation that we bind coverage with Aetna for all lines of coverage, and all of the dollar amounts in that total contract are within the budgeted amount. I would like to point out that our request of you, staff's request of you this evening, is simply to bind coverage for these insurance options. We will be back to you, as we discussed in the committee meeting, to discuss wellness program options and how that might affect premium shares for employee and the city, as well as some additional conversation on surcharges that we currently assess to employees, and we'll be coming back to you with that information in the August committee meeting. So the action before you tonight is simply a request to approve the contract to bind coverage with Aetna for these lines of coverage. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions on council? Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman DiPolito,
Second.
second by Councilman Orleans. All in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is the Transportation Department, which would normally be myself, but I'll ask our City Administrator, Kay Love, to present that for us, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. This item is approval of resolution for the mayor and our city administrator to sign a sales agreement for the purchase of land lot 421 located at 275 South Atlanta Street in the amount of $200,000 plus all applicable closing costs. Mr. Strickland, will you present this item?
Thank you. Councilmember Price, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll have to get used to doing that. Members, this is a resolution for the approval of a sales agreement to be signed by the mayor and/or the city administrator, and funding authorization for the acquisition of Lot 2 and a land division of property located at 275 Atlanta Street. The acquisition is the implementation of one of several steps identified within an approved memorandum of agreement between the City of Roswell and the National Park Service. The steps are to mitigate for impacts to the park by the Gateway Project. Each of these steps are to be brought forward and reviewed for appropriate implementation over time as the city and the National Park Service works through the details of the required mitigation. This purchase will enable the city to construct a trailhead and a relocated access to Allenbrook. Let's see if this is going to work. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Allen Brook is here, and the access is here. And the request is to purchase this property at the north end, a portion of this property at the north end, which will be directly across from Warm Springs Road, and have a...
Speak into the microphone, please.
The request is to purchase a portion of this property at the north end of the park across from Warm Springs Road. This is the proposed plan for the doing away with the suicide lanes, and this is one of the this curb cut in the middle is what makes this a unique site for this property.
Do you have the other more precise plat to show?
Sure. The Lot 2 contains 3,564 square feet. It will enable the Park Service to take over just the amount of land that is needed for a parking lot for the site, which is their request. Their request is for 15 lots, 15 spaces, and the access lines up with the road, enables you to purchase just exactly the amount without affecting the remainder of the parcel. The acquisition of land adjacent to the National Park Service is specifically authorized as an eligible project under 23 U.S.C. 204 subsection H. The landowner has agreed to divide the property and to its acquisition. There are funds in the land acquisition account in the amount of $322,425 available for this, and the purchase price is $200,000 plus closing cost.
Can you go back to the one with the yellow coloring?
Sure.
Now, that doesn't look wide enough to have a driveway and parking spaces.
No, it's just the parking spaces.
That is just the parking spaces.
Yes.
They already own the road.
The National Park Service wanted to maintain control of the road, so we're not buying a road for them. They want to own that road and have access to it and be able to close it if they want. So by making it just the parking spaces, we're buying just exactly what they're interested in buying.
Okay, and at one point, we discussed having parking spaces at the rear of that property, but that is not going to be the case anymore.
Not part of this plan, no.
Okay, any questions from council? Mr. DiPolito?
Thank you. Mr. Strickland, who is going to be building the road for this parking area?
As part of the Gateway project, we will be building the lot and the access road.
So we'll be putting in the parking spaces as well as
Yes.
the access?
Right.
Okay. And the National Park Service realizes that access road is on their property?
Yes.
And they're okay with
Their
that?
desire, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from the audience? Step forward, please.
Janet Russell, glad I came tonight. How did we arrive at $200,000 for 15 parking spaces? That seems excessive. Did the owner just say that's how much he wants and we just played dead and said okay? That seems high to me. Also, if the National Park Service we're working with them, are they kicking in any money for this, or are we just getting to pay for it, all of it? And if in fact the National Park Service is working with us, does that mean they'll actually put a sidewalk on the property that fronts onto South Atlanta Street from Riverside Drive all the way to Allenbrook? Currently, there's no paving. It's eroding. They've piled rocks so people don't slip into the ravine. And I've been told for many, 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 many years that the city won't do anything with that because it fronts onto national park property, and it's the National Park Service's responsibility. So maybe we need to do a trade-off here. We'll do all this if you give us a sidewalk so our pedestrians can walk to the river and push strollers and not fall in the ravine, which you really need to check on. It is a terrible safety hazard that gets worse with every single rain that we've had this year, and someone will slip into the ravine and die. I can assure you, the sidewalk's this wide. So how do we get to $200,000? That's a really lot of money for 15 parking spaces.
Well, as you know, this part of the plan is part of an overall agreement with the Park Service. We have a memorandum of agreement of a number of items, and a lot of them are you do this, we do this. And so this is part of that. As far as the negotiated price, that was part of our negotiations. If somebody would like to elaborate on that, who was part of those negotiations, and that was the amount that we were not to go above.
Well, I know, but what was the amount we weren't to go below? I mean, I just think $200,000 for 15 parking spaces and an access road that we're going to build is a lot of money.
Mr. Davison, would you like to comment?
Mr. Strickland actually handled those negotiations.
Are you? Okay.
Comment on this.
Go ahead.
The plan is to do almost all the things that she mentioned. The plan is to do the road, to do the sidewalk, to improve all those things. The number of different things and impacts on that are huge to the National Park Service. And so the negotiation involves other areas that we're looking at to negotiate for. The price is the price, what someone asked for the price, and we were authorized 60% more than that, and we came in with a price that's 43% less than we were authorized to make. So it turns out to be a relatively good deal. It doesn't look like very much on its face. It's only 15 spaces, but that's all we need, and we didn't want to affect the adjacent property.
How many acres is it?
It's 0.08 acres.
0.08 acres.
0.08 acres. It's not a very large piece of property, but it's all we need for this purpose, and it doesn't affect the rest of the property, which is important to the client.
Also, in exchange for that, we're getting some right-of-way along the side of the road from the Park Service.
Thank you. Well, that was my question. He's got the right, I think the owner, I don't know, Mr. Allen, to subdivide or take parcel out this property, so he's not selling us everything. It's common knowledge that most land in Roswell, where I live down in that area, is worth about $100,000 an acre, and we're paying $200,000 for less than 1 acre. That just seems excessive to me. The land is of no use to him except to sell it to us, because he can't really do anything with it since it abuts the national park and sits right on that corridor. Obviously, he can't do much with it. I've lived there 40 years. He's done nothing with it to this point. As far as the federal government and the Chattahoochee Forest, I've been waiting 40 years for that sidewalk and was told 25 years ago I wasn't patient enough. I think 40 years is probably long enough, but I honestly can tell you that I do not think in my lifetime I will see that sidewalk completed. I think the city's, in its naivete and in its so wanting to make something happen down there, that they're spending money that could be used other places. I'm not against parking spaces, but you know, Allenbrook, I can't even remember the last time it was occupied or what's its used for. I think somebody lived in it when I first moved there, but it's just sort of there. So I really question $200,000. You may have negotiated and come down 43% or 49% or 68% or whatever. I just think you paid too much money for it. This city that squeezes every dime out of every person that uses every facility is willing to plunk down $200,000 for 15 parking spaces that they're going to build. Nobody else is going to build. We're going to have to pay for those parking spaces and all that construction as well. The federal government's not going to kick in, are they? Are they going to help pay for the parking spaces? They are. How much? What's the percentage? Anybody know? Might be a good question. How much is the National Park Service going to kick in to help pay for those parking spaces and that access road? Or are they going to say after we do all the work, oh, we only really meant to pay you 10%. Tough cookies, you've already built it. You can't get money out of the government.
Any other questions or comments from council or the audience? Councilmember Diamond?
I was just going to reiterate what Councilmember Price, or Mayor Pro Tem Price, had mentioned, that this is part of a much larger agreement. So taken by itself, it looks like a significant dollar amount, and it is. But you really need to take into perspective the overall program and what we're working with the National Park Service to accomplish. They've been very accommodating with the Historic Gateway, much more so than we could have imagined. So we've got a good relationship with them, and this is the best opportunity we have to provide them what they need in exchange for providing us some right-of-way and working with us on the Historic Gateway project.
Councilmember Diamond?
Yeah, I guess my comment was similar. I mean, I understood we did appraisals before we determined an amount to get to a discussion of how much, and that, yes, it is expensive. I don't disagree with that at all. But compared to what we would pay to buy from the National Park Service the right-of-way along Highway 9, it wasn't even close. So yeah, to reiterate, it is part of a much bigger picture that unfortunately we only do pieces at a time in approvals, that you can't really see that whole picture.
Councilman Orleans?
I don't want to repeat everything, but Janet, we did try to work a lot of other factors into this, and one of the other things we're going to get, nothing guaranteed working with the government as well, but part of the negotiations I've been trying to get that train bed, that railroad bed, as part of our trail system to come up from the river all the way up to behind Allenbrook House so we can connect over to the National Park. And that is also in this, and dealing with the National Park and also some trails down on the river. So there's been a lot of different pieces moving with the National Park that we're getting them finally to come together on it, and this kind of fits for them that they couldn't accomplish. So yeah, I think in end result it's going to be very worthwhile on doing it. So.
Also, the National Park Service is coming up on their centennial, and there may be some funding available through that as a centennial celebration project, and we're hoping that we might have some opportunity through that to put a footbridge within the park that will also help us. So there are a number of things in the works, and I think this begins that process of completing the other elements in our memorandum of agreement.
I just have one more question. I'm sorry, since you've introduced that information about the railroad. You know, I love nature and I love this city, but I think you need to accept the fact that we don't all want to walk on wooded trails to get everywhere we go. We're not Annie Oakley. We are human beings that want to walk to the grocery store, if we had one, the drugstore, if we had one, anything. We need, and as a female, a wooded trail walking alone is not my friend. I need a sidewalk that is well lighted, that is safe, that is wide enough for 2 or 3 people to walk together next to each other, not like soldiers walking down the street. So I think you need to make sure that the National Park Service understands, and I served on that Citizens Committee for the Historic Gateway for 18 months. I know what was talked about. I attended meetings every month for 18 months. However, the thing that is always forgotten is people, humans, live in the corridor. They have lives to conduct. They do not necessarily want to drive. That's why they live in that corridor. If they didn't, they would live in Horseshoe Bend or Brookfield West or Saddle Creek or Lumpy Lump or wherever they want. But those people who live in that corridor are deserving of sidewalks on both sides of the street. Do you know that almost 2 miles from the square to the river and there's not one crosswalk? But on Canton Street in a half a mile there are 11 crosswalks? And yet there are 50,000 cars a day in that corridor and not one crosswalk to safely cross to the only existing sidewalk. So I think when you start talking to the National Park Service about excess and this and that, please remember that not everyone wants to put on their coonskin cap and walk through the trails. We need to be able to live our lives out in the open and safely. And I'll say it again, a dark wooded forest trail is not a single woman's friend.
Thank you, Mrs.
Janet,
Russell.
if you heard us, we said we're getting right away along the road as well for sidewalks.
Both sides,
The trail is in addition to
but both
the
sides,
street.
Gary, both sides?
Let's
When
not
we
have
are
a
doing the
conversation,
highway,
please.
yes, ma'am. The trail is in addition. The trail is not meant to be the only pathway.
I bet the trails are built first.
Thank you, Mrs. Russell, for your comments. We appreciate your service on the Gateway Committee, and be assured that we take your comments under consideration every time you offer a comment in good faith. I failed earlier to recognize some Boy Scouts in the audience, and if there's a Boy Scout or more, one or more here, please come forward and identify yourself and tell us what brings you here this evening. Normally, we would have the Boy Scouts do the Pledge of Allegiance, but we had a special guest today, so you get to come up at this time instead. If each of you would approach the microphone and just say your name and what troop you're with. The microphone's that little black thing there.
My name is Aiden Piper, and I'm here for the Citizen in the Community Merit Badge.
And what troop?
1134.
34. Thank you.
I'm Joseph Crisanti, and I'm doing the same thing he is, and I'm in the same troop of 34.
Thank you.
I'm James Killian, and I'm here for the Citizenship in the Community Merit Badge 2, and I'm from Troop 69.
Thank you. So just come back to the microphone. What do you think of the political process in the city of Roswell? Any comments?
Oh, no.
Any observations? No. Well, we're certainly available to help you as you satisfy the requirements of that badge, and all of us are very willing to help you if you have individual questions or needs to fulfill that badge. So thank you for coming. We appreciate your being here, and don't forget, go for the Eagle. Thank you. I think we're winding down. We almost could have, no? Oh, I'm sorry, we'd haven't entertained a motion. That would be good, wouldn't it? So going back to the item that we were just had at hand, which was the transportation item number 3. Any further comments, or I'll entertain a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion for approval by Councilman Orleans. Second by Councilwoman Nguyen. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Appears to be unanimous. The motion passes. The next item is our city attorney's report. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel and real estate matters.
Do I hear a motion? Motion for closure by Councilman DiPolito. A reluctant second by Councilwoman Nguyen. All in favor? Appears to be unanimous. I declare the meeting adjourned.